All right, good evening. Before we start, the City Council just met on two closed session items, and there is nothing to report out at this time. Thank you for viewing the August 5th meeting of the Arcata City Council. The City Council meeting is being held as a hybrid meeting with both in-person attendance and teleconference access via Zoom. The City of Arcata acknowledges the lands that we are located on are on the unceded ancestral lands of the Wiyot tribe. The land that Arcata rests on is known in the Wiyot language as Gudini, meaning over in the woods or among the redwoods. Past actions by local, state, and federal governments removed the Wiyot and other indigenous peoples from the land and threatened to destroy their cultural practices. The City of Arcata acknowledges the Wiyot community, their elders, both past and present, as well as future generations. This acknowledgement seeks to aid in dismantling the legacy narratives of settler colonialism. If you would like, please join me now for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Will the city clerk please call the roll?
Mayor White,
Present.
Vice Mayor Atkins Salazar,
Here.
Councilmember Matthews,
Here.
Councilmember Stillman,
Present.
Councilmember Schaefer is absent, but we do have a quorum.
Thank you. If you would wish to make a comment during the meeting, either for an individual agenda item or during the second oral and written communication period under agenda item 11, there are three ways to do so. 1, if you are here in person, please line up behind the podium when that item you would like to speak on is accepting public comment. 2, if you are logged on into Zoom, click raise your hand when it is time for public comment on the item you wish to speak on. And 3, if you're on the phone, press star 9 on your phone and raise your hand. When it is your turn, you will be prompted to dial star 6 on your phone. For these items, we will be taking in-person public comment first, then move to online comments. We will not be going back and forth, so if you are wanting to comment, please line up at the podium or raise your electronic hand as soon as the public comment is requested for that item. And that brings us to ceremonial matters, and I don't believe we have any today. We will be receiving an annual report from the Transportation Safety Committee. Can we receive a report from the Transportation Committee Chair, Genevieve Serna, please?
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Genevieve Serna. I'm the chair for the Arcata Transportation Safety Committee. I'm here to present you all with the annual report. Before I begin, I did just want to thank some of our past members who stepped down from our committee this year, Mishka Streka and Nia Tico. I just wanted to thank you all for your service, as well as our staff liaisons, Nature Cautry, David Case, Lieutenant Altizer, and Mark Groh. For those of you who may not be familiar, the committee's primary function is to review transportation-related matters and make recommendations to the City Council. This past year, we've taken a fair amount of public comment, but have known a couple of patterns that have come up, including continued concerns regarding speeding and pedestrian safety at 11th and Q Streets, also construction debris and bike lane and roadway cleanliness throughout the town, and requests for additional street sweeping, requests for additional bicycle parking, storage, and bike valet throughout the city. We've also addressed some parking concerns near the new student housing development, previously called the Krasn Mall, but now Hanarhu Mulik. For reports that we receive quarterly reports from Lieutenant Altizer. We've been able to note a 30% reduction in reported traffic collisions for Q1 of 2026, so some good news for the city of Arcata. We're also continuing to analyze street story data to prioritize future safety projects. Some current and planned city projects include the continuation of the review of the Highway Safety Improvement Program, or HSIP. Looking forward to the 2026 annual paving project, we will recommend some projects for the engineering department to hopefully prioritize to improve some safety safety conditions throughout the city, keeping track of the Annie and Mary Trail construction, as well as ongoing striping, signage, and multimodal safety improvements. Some of those priority recommendations that we've been able to determine from, again, last year's street story data and collision reports have been improving intersection enhancements at Foster and Alliance, intersection enhancements at Spear and Alliance, striping and stop sign evaluation requests for 11th and Q, striping fog lines on Q Street to encourage traffic calming, as well as improved bicycle signage or sharrows on the Buttermilk Avenue and Samoa Boulevard roundabout. For roundabout specifically, these can be a touchy subject for our committee. For this particular roundabout, we do feel that sharrows may be an appropriate option, but are always looking for some more robust improvements to building some of these roundabouts. I do appreciate what they do provide for traffic calming, though. So looking ahead, our goals for next year, there is 9 of them. I won't read them all off to you, but some of them that stick out to me as being some of the ones that we're looking forward to the most are continuing to advance plans for implementation of AB 43 with a subcommittee that we formed, or an ad hoc subcommittee to look at some of the priority areas for implementation for that assembly bill. Supporting the development of an updated pedestrian and bicycle master plan. This has been one that the engineering department has had on their plate for quite some time, and they're looking for continued support in their department to try and get somebody dedicated to reviewing that plan. It's been over 10 years since we've been able to update it, and I know that with an updated plan, we can just achieve a lot more in the city and then hopefully improve our bicycle community rating from, I believe, what is currently silver to a gold status. We'll continue to monitor transportation impacts associated with new development and then prioritize improving safety for pedestrians, bicyclists, and transit users for those projects, as well as improving traffic calming measures for motorists. Any questions? Thank you all
No,
for.
thank you. That was a lot.
Yeah.
I'll start on our vice mayor, or go ahead.
Well, I
Whoever.
think transportation, there's so many things that come up in the city all the time, and everybody has their pet peeve according to where they live and where they drive and so forth and ride their bikes. And so I think you get a lot of concerns that you have to figure out how to deal with, and I really appreciate the committee and what they have to handle. And thank you for doing it.
Thank you.
I frequently drive on K and 11th and have noticed the new speed bumps, and that's definitely, I know those are just temporary to trial it out, and they are a little rough. We all know that, but it is working for traffic calming. So thank you.
Yeah, of course. Wonderful.
So 34% reduction. That's wonderful news. And
Yeah.
thank you for what you do. I'm curious, you said you needed support for has not had an update for the bike ped master plan in 10 years. What do you need from us?
What we see is mostly that staff of the engineering department, I can only imagine their workload is up to their eyeballs. And so when you have as many pressing projects as you have on your plate as that department does, updating things like these really important but like lengthy plans, like having to thumb through them and seeing, again, this plan was crafted more than 10 years ago. I'm sure that there is a lot in that master plan that needs to be updated. I just don't know that they necessarily have the staffing or that anybody has the time to go through those plans. And just so anything that can be done to support that department with some additional hands.
Absolutely. Maybe we can get some momentum on that. And thank you so much for what you do.
Of course. Thank you.
Now we are going to be receiving an update on the 2026-27 Call for Art and the Playhouse Outside Arts Grant from Emily Benvey, Environmental Service Director, and Jacqueline Dananu from Executive Artist Director of Playhouse Arts. Can we receive an update from Environmental Service Deputy Director Benvey And there you are, Jackie. Step on up.
Okay, good evening, council and community members. I am joined with Jackie Dandino of Playhouse Arts. And before we jump into the presentation, I wanted to share how much I enjoy and appreciate getting to present with our community partners at council meetings. So I just wanted to take a note. It's really meaningful when we're able to join city resources with our local partnerships and really bring a lot more energy into the community. So starting there, I also wanted to tie in this presentation with the Strategic Arts Plan. Back in November of 2025, staff and Playhouse Arts presented the 3-year review of our Strategic Arts Plan as prescribed by the plan. So I won't go into great depth on the plan itself, but I did want to note that the plan was developed through a robust community engagement process, and one of the key aspects of the plan was designating Playhouse Arts as the city's local arts agency. And how much has really come out of that designation is hard to understate. The city has been able to allocate funds for Call for Arts and formalize a partnership with Playhouse Arts that has also enabled us to provide more formal grant support and in-kind services. And so really having the Strategic Arts Plan and that formal designation has opened up a lot of opportunities between the city and our local arts agency. That being said, the item before you tonight is an update on the most recent 2025-2026 Call for Arts, as well as getting an overview of one of Playhouse Arts' recent grant opportunities. And part of that came about just in conversation and realizing how much Playhouse Arts does with how little resources, and really what they've been able to bring to Arcata's parks is really astounding. And so it deserved a staff report in and of itself. And so with that, I will turn the mic over to Jackie and the mouse as well.
Wow, I get a mouse and a mic. Look out, people. It's all going to go down now. I just want to reiterate what Emily said about the relationship with the city right now. I am really pleased with the way that we've progressed our relationship together. We've been around for 20 years, so we just celebrated our 20th anniversary last Friday. And I think the level of trust and accommodation, and not accommodation, but the level of trust and understanding of what we're doing and what you're doing has been really outstanding. And staff are amazing to work with. I just want to say that the Strategic Arts Plan plays into so much of what is going on with Redwood Region Rise right now, that we really, we're in a good position here in the city of Arcata and with the Playhouse to really capitalize on some of those Redwood Region Rise motives that are out there, tourism, cultural, outdoor, and the outdoors and arts and culture. So I'll be at the Redwood Region Rise Summit and talking about what we're doing in Arcata, because I think it's been a very exciting partnership, this one. Are you okay, Merritt? Do you need some water? Okay, Merritt's okay. So I'm going to click, right? I'm just going to click. Look at that. So we had this great, look, it's working. Supporting them through kids and teens, mental health, seniors. At the Playhouse, we really believe that the arts are a cornerstone of both economic development and societal health. So looking at the creative placemaking values to say, without the arts, we saw what happened during the pandemic when we could not gather. And that is a huge part of the arts. If we are worried about AI, come to the Playhouse, because we are real. You won't get AI, guaranteed. So one of the big initiatives we've been doing this last year, we wrote a grant with the California Arts and Parks, the state parks and California Arts. And so we did a project called Outside Arts Light and Dark. We started with a design grant that we worked, the city said, yeah, let's see what happens when we design it. And then we got an implementation grant. And so for the last year, from October 2025 to September 2026, we have been implementing this Outside Arts Light and Dark. You can look at the numbers here and the purpose: to enhance creativity and connection through the arts in various parks throughout Arcata. We had 10 free public events, 11 in 11 city parks, and hundreds of community participants. Hey, that math doesn't make sense, does it? 10 public events, 11 city parks, but we did a lot of things. And the city worked with us on permits and total park fees to make sure that we could do these things. So it's easy to look at those numbers and say, wow, that's great. But the actual impact in the parks, like Mountain View Park that we did our first storytelling event in, people didn't even know there was a park there. And so, and then the people who lived around the park were so excited that something was happening in that park that they were like, when are you coming back? And when are you doing something else? So it's kind of laid this great groundwork for our Arcata parks, which are pretty exciting when you start looking at them. I mean, there are parks that I didn't know about, obviously. I'm from Blue Lake, but, you know, I live here mostly. And there were parks that I was like, wow, what's that park? And then, you know, just the bike path and the connection to Valley West. It's an exciting time to be in Arcata and to be working with you all here at the city to how we make these, how we connect the arts and our outside activities. So, local culture bearers and artists were invited to lead the community through artistic endeavors. We had a lot of artists come through and do various things from storytelling to weaving to bookmaking to dance to music. It just, it was a very exciting time to be in Arcata Parks. We did some other things as well, and everything was free. I'm going to show a little bit of these things. So this is a list of what we did. We showed the red balloon in Windsong Village in, you know, the dead of winter, and it was cold and it was rainy, and we made tons of red balloon lanterns with the community before, and we hung them, and people came out in their lawn chairs and sat in the areas that were not too deep in mud. And it was really beautiful. We had a round screen, and we'll see some photos of that. Working in the Arcata Marsh, we did Big Read with pollinators in the park. So we worked with a program called Big Read, where we distributed 600 books of Ida Lamone's poetry books, Poetry in the Natural World, and then people had responses to them. And so that happened in connection with this. The Here Here listening posts are in Arcata Marsh, Redwood Park, Greenview Park, Stewart Park, and Larson Park. And that's a chance for people to go there, record what they hear, and upload it to a public archive that we will be using as we move along to our end thing here, Illuminature. So this is a photo of Booknick in Chevrette Vassad Park. Some of the original things that happened in Arcata is we were here doing a booknick, and I took a picture, and there were some horses that walked by in the park. In the playground there were two people on horses. And when you submit that up to people who are in Florida, they're like, what's going on out there? There's horses in the park. And so to really sort of understand that we are unique in the arts world, and rurally we have something that people want to come to. So, and that our community, we want to support our community. This is dancing in Shea Park. So we had a series of dancers. All of these programs build towards our final outdoor spectacle that's coming up at the end of August. So I'm just giving you some of these. And I just want to say thank you to Nancy Stevens and Carissa Pinnell on staff who put this together for me. So here's Windsong, the red balloon in Windsong Village. You can see the mud, and it was beautiful though. And this is the movie. It was on a round screen. And so there might come a day where we do this again. It was quite outstanding. We had popcorn and hot chocolate. This is weaving in Shea Park. We worked closely with Yurok master weaver Teresa Serbaugh, and she did an exhibit for us as part of this grant in the Playhouse that is now in the Jacoby Storehouse on Good Fire, and so Fire of Our Ancestors. So that's still in the Jacoby Storehouse. And she came and we did some weaving in Shea Park, and I learned that you can weave with blackberry brambles. If you have good gloves and you just rip all the little things off, they're beautiful things to weave with. So I learned a lot from Teresa, and she'll be involved in the final spectacle as well. We did some new moon seed planting in Stewart Park, where we made these little boxes and put seeds in them with dirt, and everybody walked away with their own things and then grew their calendulas at home. And the end spectacle is happening in a full moon. So the goal is to bring people out into the park in light and dark. So people often think of the parks of coming like, oh, it's a sunny day, or it's light out, or it's not winter. Our goal with this program was to really say, it's beautiful all the way around, light, dark, to see kids be in the dark. We did, coming up is, we did this night walk at the Arcata Marsh, where we turned off our lights and we just walked around the marsh and saw what it was like to be there in the dark of night. It was pretty cool. And we did this Moon Quest shadow play in Shea Park, where there were a lot of kids there who were like in the park at night, which isn't a thing that lots of kids get a chance to do, is to be out in nature in the dark. So that was exciting too. So yeah, so that program, sorry, I'm going to go backwards. Can I do that? Oh no, I can't. Oh no, now I'm only going forwards. Oh my gosh. Okay, I went backwards. All of these outside art, light and dark, are building towards our final spectacle in Carlson Park on August 28th. Oh, look there. What's next? So all of the things that we talked about there are building towards Illuminature, which is happening on August 28th. And that will have shadow, that will have songs, that will have musicians, a shadow play. It will have movies, all like a visual, what am I looking for? Digital things, not quite a movie, but like they'll show film things on the screen. Sorry, it's been a very long day. So it's going to be an exciting time. It's all free to the public. Our goal with this program was to be free to the public. And with the support of the city, California State Parks, and Parks California, we really were able to do that. We were able to pay artists, and we're able to do the event for free. So that's very exciting to have that ability to do that. We're asking that people reserve their spot for Illuminature. We won't cut anybody off, but we want to know if we're going to get 50 people or 1,000 people, so we can deal with it accordingly. So we're really working towards that. We have some workshops coming up, lantern building workshops. Check out our website, playhousearts.org. Again, it's all free. It's free to the public, and kids from 4 to 400. We'll get some vampires in there making lanterns because it's really easy to do. So those will be coming up too, and that's on our website. And now I'm going to shoot backwards to the 2025-26 call for public art. In connection with the city, we've really created a great art committee of a lot of people, and I have their names here, and I'm going to read them very quickly. Brittany Britton, Bob Benson, Johanna Maurer, Katie Belknap, Rachel Sundberg, Shyla, Alex Ozaki McNeil, Amy Uweki, Ben Goulart, Mo Harper Desir, and Corey Stiles. So they're a great team, and they show up and talk about art and what they like to see. So we met in February of 2025 to finalize what the open call would look like. We decided that we wanted to put all the money towards fire hydrants in Sunnybrae. So we did that, and then we opened the call. We selected the artists. There are 14 artists who will do fire hydrants, and 2 artists will do public events. So one will happen at Porch Fest in October, and it is a dance piece with Carrie Maschmeyer from Ink People and around here. And then the other one is kind of an art installation of an arch and a place to be with Gaia. And that's our hope for that, is that it will be at the North Country Fair. So those 2 art installations will go to those places. And then we will release the hydrants on October 4th at Porch Fest. So people will be able to see all the artists and see all the fire hydrants as they walk around at the Porch Fest. So it's all done. There's the fire hydrants. There's the maps. We have had a little bit of graffiti happen on the fire hydrants, which is the first time since I've been doing public art that I've seen graffiti on artwork. So that's interesting. It's an interesting thing for me to work my way through. So I figure out how to make it not be there. So those are the fire hydrants. It's very exciting to see fire hydrants. I see they're popping up in other cities now too, so that's exciting as well. And just to say that I look forward to collaborating with the city, and that I hope in the next year we can work together to apply for more grants together. We have done some collaborative grant making coming up, hopefully for next year, around housing and intentional communities and getting artists involved in design around that. So we'll see if that comes through and if we can move forward with sort of our vision of, an artist community. So that's exciting. And there'll probably be other things that I'll call you 3 days before and be like, it's due in 2 days. Write me a letter. Oh my gosh. No, not quite that bad. But it's an exciting time. It's also a scary time because our funding has dried up. A lot of our funding has dried up. And, we have lots of big plans for the coming year and really looking to the community to hold our back on this a little bit because we're in a period like a lot of nonprofits that we've sort of had our footing ripped out from under us. But we're resilient, and like Emily says, we do a lot with what we have. But that's the projection for me for 2026, 27. That's it. Only that. Small amounts of things.
Well, that's amazing. Did you want to add to this?
Or did you want to say
Sure.
something?
Yeah, I can closing remarks. It's hard to top that one, but yeah, I think just to underscore the city's role has really been to create the infrastructure or the container, whether it's working through the permit process for out of the box ideas or whether it is writing grant letters of support or providing funding. We've really, the actual physical parks themselves. So the city's infrastructure and container and institutional support has really dovetailed with what Playhouse has to offer, which is creativity and activating the spaces and connecting with community members that, we don't always get to interact with on a day-to-day. So just really want to highlight the importance of these sorts of partnerships going forward, and particularly in to use a buzzword, leveraging our resources going forward effectively. So yeah, with that, happy to answer any questions, and thank you very much for the time.
Great. Follow the lanterns and walk the circle where light becomes shadow and shadow becomes light. That is just beautiful. I am obviously really excited about the culmination of the Illuminature at Carlson Park, and I will spread the word and we'll give you a head count as best we can, but super excited about it. Yeah, thank you so much for all the work you do.
That park is a magical park.
It is.
When you get in there and start walking around in the
Yeah.
woods, it's really beautiful. There's so many pockets and so many.
And the only river
Yeah.
access in the city of Arcata city
Yeah.
limits, so pretty
It's
awesome
quite
for
it's
Bad
quite
River.
magical, and it'll give a chance for people to see the beauty of that
Yeah,
that park.
I love
think
that with the
Illuminature-
lanterns and all
Yeah.
of that. I'm so
Yeah.
excited.
It starts at 8 p.m. Just
Yeah.
so you know.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, congratulations on your 20 years. I happened by, because I got the dates of my circus tickets wrong. But it's beautiful. I love that you call it a spectacle. I think that's fantastic. I happened at that book Nick was right in my neighborhood, and I remember stopping by, and it was wonderful. And just thank you so much for all you do.
Thank you.
Yeah, same. Thank you. It's all amazing. And thanks, Emily, too, for the support, with the city. So
Yeah,
it's great.
I'd just like to say that the city staff are amazing, from the two Emilys and Merritt and the building department and how they deal with me. Like I'm like, I don't know what a commercial building I don't know these things, and just really been really great. This year has just been really smooth and easy, and I will sing their praises high and low.
And Stephen.
Yeah, and Stephen. Yeah.
Well, I noticed that we have a website and we have your fire hydrants on it. I mean, Emily showed that to me. And so I'm assuming these new ones will all be on there with the artist that did that. And I think that's really good. And so the other part I think is that I'm going to work on the part that all the sculptures we have in the downtown and who did those and with photographs. So that in order, because you're doing the present and the future And that's the past, and it all together and making Arcata unique. And thank you very much for all
Yeah.
your work.
Thank you
Appreciate it.
for your work.
Yeah, and I'm really excited also about hearing about Porch Fest. Is that going to come before us in the next
Oh, yeah.
city council meeting? All right. Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to piggyback on what Alex was mentioning, the sculptures, we have two beautiful ones right out in Valley West in the Circle, Bob Benson and Ben Funke. So yeah, more to come.
Yeah, that kind of asset mapping is something that we started actually, that when we looked at doing the Arcata Strategic Arts Plan a long time ago, we had some asset mapping that went on through a grant that we got from the National Endowment for the Arts, I think in like 2013. So things have changed a bit, but somewhere in the depths of my Google Drive, I probably have some asset mapping stuff to start out with that that went on. I would love to see that go. I'd also like to see some cross between the City of Arcata's website and the Playhouse website so that we can cross over between the two of us, and how we get some Playhouse events on the City of Arcata's website, and how we can leverage the things that we have for the city, so that people recognize the partnership that we do have, that it is robust. It's not just in name. And so I would love to see that happen.
It's a great idea. Thank you. All right. Well, that brings us then, we will be receiving an update regarding the Redwood Coast Energy Authority, RCEA, from our Executive Director of RCEA, Beth Burks. Come on down.
Turn it green. Okay, great. We'll just pull the presentation up here. Thanks. There we go. Yeah. Yep. Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me. Yeah, I'm Beth Burks. I'm the Executive Director of the Redwood Coast Energy Authority, and we wanted to come before you today as one of our member agencies to give an update. I'm going to start with just kind of an overview of RCEA, and specifically with some details about sort of RCEA in Arcata, and then go into our budget for this year and our rate change strategy. So I'll just get started. So for those that don't know us well, our CEA, the Redwood Coast Energy Authority, we are a joint powers agency. We're governed by local elected officials. We've got representatives from each of the cities, the county. We also have 2 tribal nations on our board of directors, the Blue Lake Rancheria and the Yurok tribe. We are a mission-driven organization focused on local control of our energy, energy efficiency, renewable energy, resilience, and economic benefit. And we are the electricity generation portion of most of our community's electricity bills. So we provide electricity generation in place of what PG&E would provide. So how this works is we purchase power from renewable sources, and in 2025, our portfolio consists entirely of renewable and carbon-free resources. So wind, solar, we also have biomass from Scotia in our portfolio. And then PG&E continues to deliver the power to our homes and businesses. So we don't get involved in transmission and distribution, but we procure the power based on our local governance model that really gives us a lot of control over what type of power we're putting in that portfolio. So we became a community choice energy provider in 2016, 2017. We're getting close to 10 years. So customers were automatically enrolled. That was part of the community choice system, is that customers are automatically enrolled, and then they can drop out if they would prefer to stay with PG&E instead of being with a local provider. And with that, we also have several programs that we offer, including support for energy efficiency, upgrades, electric vehicles. We offer e-bike rebates, and we do several local renewable energy projects. We are a bit well known for innovation and resilience projects, specifically the Redwood Coast Airport Microgrid project, which if you've been to the airport, you've certainly seen. It's California's first 100% renewable front-of-the-meter multi-customer microgrid. That's a mouthful, but what it really means on a practical level is that if the power goes out, if we have a catastrophe, any kind of natural disaster or emergency, that the airport and the Coast Guard station stay fully operational and fully powered. It's pretty novel. It was the first one in California. I believe it's now one of 2, so it's still very, very innovative. This was in consultation and work with the Fox Energy Resource Center at Cal Poly Humboldt that helped us bring this online. We get a lot of interest in touring it. When we had those earthquakes a few years ago, we really put it to the test. Those were happening, around winter solstice. So, shortest day of the year, storms. So the batteries, functioned beautifully, and we were able to keep things online even with reduced sun exposure for the solar panels. So pretty amazing resource that we were able to bring online. We also operate a network of EV charging stations, public EV charging stations. We've got those at 23 locations around Humboldt County. And this is really to encourage the adoption of electric vehicles. One of the things we hear a lot about is range anxiety and people concerned they can't charge. Well, now even if you go to Witchpeck, you could charge. We've got a center, I think, a station out in Orleans. We've got one in Willow Creek, as far south as Garberville. Here in Arcata, we've got 18 ports at 4 locations. We've got them at the community center, Carlson Park, Mad River Hospital, and the Arcata Technology Center. We also are the portfolio manager for the Northern Rural Energy Network. This is a network that spans Humboldt County, Lake County, Mendocino County, and then 14 counties in the Sierras through our partner, the Sierra Business Council. This is a program focused on energy efficiency, and it brings dollars to our community that would not be here otherwise. So this is entirely funded, not out of our ratepayer funds, but out of public purpose program dollars that are administered through the California Public Utilities Commission. We administer the portfolio for the whole program and all of these partner agencies, and then we implement it here in Humboldt. So our energy advisors, our customer program specialists, they're the ones doing the work here in Humboldt. And that brings, through the end of 2027, it'll be about $9.5 million brought to Humboldt County specifically. It's a much larger program. We have a lot of pass-through funds that go to our partners as well. But for here in Humboldt, that's the financial impact. We focus on energy assessments. We have a rebate catalog for energy efficiency upgrades. There's some workforce work we do or will be launching around encouraging people to go into the trade so that we have good people to do this work that we want to see in terms of efficiency upgrades. And then we're going to be launching a finance program to help primarily businesses that want to do energy efficiency upgrades. We're looking at no interest loans to very low interest loans that can help kind of gap finance some of this to help make it a little more palatable. Through the NREN program that got started probably mid last year is when we launched our first program, really starting with the residential component. This is still very much in the upstart phase, launching all of these variety of programs. But since mid last year when we started the residential program, there's been 95 rebates for energy efficiency upgrades issued to Arcata residents for a total of about $43,000. We've supplied 63 energy efficiency kits. These are free kits that anyone can request that just have some handy items in them that can help improve energy efficiency around your home. And then we've done 20 home assessments for Arcata residents. And this is where we go through all of their appliances, their insulation. It's a very long, detailed list and make some recommendations, everything from sort of low to no cost recommendations that could help them be more energy efficient in their home to higher cost items such as maybe switching over to a heat pump, water heater, or something like that. We have several other ways we've partnered with Arcata over the years. I think recently you've seen a presentation about the community center solar project where RCA assisted with the feasibility analysis, initial design, and managed the loan and, did the measure savings calc that were required for the loan. We've also reviewed utility rate schedules for the city and made recommendations that could save the city about $12,000 annually. We have done energy assessments in 2025 for 7 city facilities and 4 Arcata businesses. And then our staff do attend your bi-monthly energy committee meetings, frequently giving them presentations and keeping them up to speed on what we're doing and taking feedback on various programs that we're implementing. So a pretty direct line of communication with that committee. All right, I want to switch gears now to our budget overview and our rate strategy. Our process for the RCA budget this year, we started in May setting priorities and looking at cost-saving strategies. We knew that, like everywhere else, kind of a tough budget year coming up. So we did look at cost-saving strategies, and our board elected to adopt several of those. We're holding, all the usual stuff. We're holding off on positions. We are cutting education outreach budgets, all the normal ways that we we can save costs. We've implemented those, and then they also set priorities, things they were really wanting to stay the course on. So we'll talk a little bit more about those priorities in a second. And then in June, they adopted the budget and they gave us direction to set rates no more than 10% above PG&E and maintain a minimum of reserves at 26 million. So a couple of things about that. We've never been higher than PG&E in the history of these 10 years that we've been, or close to 10 years we've been operating. So this is not something we took lightly. We really toiled over it. We took an extra month, in fact, to really make sure that it made sense for us and for our community, and really left us in a position to be in a, have some financial strength going forward. The 26 million is a little bit of a magic number for us. If we dip before that in financial reserves, our cost of doing business goes up. So we start incurring penalties, creditor fees, things like that. Our banking gets more expensive. Because we deal with energy, we have really high deposit control agreements that we can't go below without incurring fees. So this really keeps us at a steady rate. If we can maintain that 26 million in reserves. So then in July, we came back and what our board approved was a 6% rate premium. And I want to spend some time talking about what that means, because 6% can sound scary, and it's nothing we take lightly, but it's important to understand what that really means. And that's inclusive of the power charge and difference adjustment, which we'll talk a little bit about. And these rates would go into effect in September, on the 1st of September. So as far as priorities that our board set, they really wanted to stay the course. One of the options we looked at was, well, should we back off of our portfolio? There wasn't a ton of cost savings in doing that, but it would have been some. But really, our board stayed steady and said that they wanted to pursue that 100% renewable and carbon-free energy portfolio that we had achieved this year. Financial health was another priority, maintain those reserves and ensure organizational solvency, and also ensure long-term rate stabilization. So what we're really trying to avoid is a situation where we have to raise rates much higher. So by taking this step now, we're ensuring against that, hopefully in the future. Customer programs, we are administering through the NREN program, the Northern Rural Energy Network that I spoke about, really an unprecedented amount of external funding. More than half of our staff are completely funded by NREN, and I think close to 70% of our overhead is now funded by NREN. So it's really a strategy of, not applying to rates the bulk of what we do, but really finding that external funding to support our activities and programs. And we wanted to, our board did want to continue offering core transportation and electrification incentives. So this is e-bike and EV rebates. I think we've partnered with the city on these in the past to give an extra rebate to Arcata residents for e-bikes. This is something that's really a fairly minor cost, but it was important to our board to maintain this. We get a lot of really positive feedback about this, and it really does make a difference to have those available. So we did reduce the amount available, but did not abandon those programs. Vision setting and regional coordination. Our board, you'll be hearing more about this in the coming months, I'm sure. But with the Regional Climate Action Plan, our CEA is considering being the host of that. We're working on an MOU that will come before all of our member agencies. And, our board really wanted to make sure that we were in a good position to maintain that commitment. And then we'll be updating our own strategic plan. We were hoping to be able to use consultant services for that. That was one of our cost-saving measures. We cut that out and plan to do it with in-house resources. But there are some things in our strategic plan that really are ripe for updating, and they influence our power procurement. So our strategic plan was last updated in 2019 and really anticipated offshore wind being viable much sooner than it is. And because we make our procurement decisions based on our strategic plan, it's now becoming problematic to have this sort of outdated, with the horizon for offshore wind keep getting moved out farther. We just have some truing up to do with some of the dates and the ambitious timelines that were in there. So we want to get that updated so it makes our procurement decisions a little more streamlined. And then we've been really working hard to optimize our operations. We've done some internal restructuring, really looking at strengthening our customer service. We feel like this is one of our biggest values. When you call an entity as large as PG&E, it can be hard to feel like you're getting really specific customer service, but since the inception of our CEA, I think it's been really a point of pride that someone local is answering the phone and can talk with people, explain a bill. For anyone who's looked at their electricity bill, I think that it's, at times can feel very purposefully confusing. So we've got people that will answer the phone and walk everybody through what does this mean? What is this charge? Why is that on there? If you have questions, I really encourage people to call. So we've made sure we keep that team strong. And then we're looking at our asset management. So we're looking at that, the Redwood Coast Airport microgrid, and we're looking at our charging network and making sure that those are as sort of net income neutral or positive as they can be, so that, we're not using ratepayer funds to fund those. So getting to our budget for this year, we are looking at a little bit of a deficit. So that was why we considered the rate change increase. And so revenues at 73 million, expenses at 78. This is primarily driven by power costs. So we don't have a ton of control over that. But one way we have reduced the liability of our power costs is to pursue what's called prepay savings. So we think we'll be able to save approximately 8%. And this is essentially a bond financing program that other CCAs have done very successfully and can reduce the cost of our energy. And so it's actually 20-year agreements. So when we say the 8% savings, which would be the minimum that we would enter into these bonds for, that's actually annual savings that would come. We're looking at about 2 million annual savings that would happen every year for 20 years. So it's a pretty good move to make right now. And we're looking forward to realizing some of those savings. So the 3.7% deficit that we're looking at, we would pull from our reserves, and we have sufficient reserves to do that and maintain that, again, that sort of magical number of the 26 million. So we do want to talk about rates and what is influencing rates. So power costs are the biggest influence of rates, no question about it. We have hedging strategies and things that help us know, how to effectively manage that cost, but it is, a commodity that prices change hourly on the CAISO market. So, it's a lot of projections, a lot of best available information, and things change very rapidly. The other big one is the power charge and difference adjustment. And this is sometimes known as the exit fee. So this is the fee that essentially makes investor-owned utilities like PG&E whole for the load that they lost when a community choice energy provider like our CEA comes online. So they had made choices, assuming of their own power portfolios, assuming they would have, a certain number of customers. And as community choice energy became viable and more prominent throughout the state, they lost a lot of customers, right? And so the concern was that the people not in a community choice energy program would somehow bear the cost for that, essentially what becomes like over procurement of energy. And so the power charge and difference adjustment was a way to make sure that didn't unduly burden those left in the investor-owned utility territory that were still receiving power from them. Unfortunately, every other state has a similar mechanism. I think there's 18 states that have a similar community choice energy scheme, not quite exactly like California's. Of course, we're always different and special. But we're the only state out of all 18 that this fee never goes away here. It never sunsets. So we're 10 years deep into this and we're still paying this fee. And in fact, it's gone up over 200% over the last year. So it's really becoming problematic. In the beginning, it was very high to be expected. And then it went down, which would be expected because time's going by. And, there would be a lot more notice to the IOU that, you don't have this load to serve anymore, make other arrangements. But instead of it staying low, it's now spiked again through some choices that have been made with the CPUC. And so, something we're watching very closely, but it's really kind of tying our hands for the moment. And then the smaller portion of that, again, is, RCEA's affecting rates is RCEA's expenses, community choice energy expenses, which are fairly nominal in the grand scheme of things. And again, part of that is because we've been able to shift so much of our staffing and overhead to outside programs, which we continue to look for opportunities to do. So specific to the PCIA, as I mentioned, it's gone up over 200% since January. And now for the typical RCA customer, it's equal to 51% of their total generation charges. So if we didn't have the PCIA, if we could make it go away, RCA's rates, even with that 6% increase, would actually be 25% lower than PG&E rates. So, to me, this tells me that the CCA model, community choice energy model, is viable, but we have some work to do on policy shifts regarding getting rid of this PCIA fee. So I wanted to give some comparison here for what's going on with the rates. Traditionally, RCEA has tracked PG&E's rates with varying degrees of discount. So I think in the beginning it may have been a 3% discount. For the last few years, it's been a 0.5% discount, so really pretty nominal. What you're looking at here on this chart, the blue section is the PG&E delivery, the transmission and distribution charges. That is, essentially nothing to do with RCEA. That's a charge on people's bill that has gone up over time. And then the green color is the generation rate. So you can see on the left-hand side PG&E, and then kind of alternating with RCEA rates. And then the smaller, I don't know what color we're going to call that, brown, orange, somewhere in that. Every screen's a little different, but that smaller amount is the PCIA. And you can see, one thing I want to note here is rates were very high. PG&E rates were very high in 2025. They actually were found to have overcollected, so those lowered in 2026. So what I want to point out here is that even, as we look at this potential, this potential 6% rate increase, we're still looking at being less than people were paying in 2025. So that's a little bit different than I think a lot of the other increases we look at, where it just, keeps climbing. But also you can see with the way the PCIA is shaping up, that we're getting kind of less headroom to be able to charge for our own generation and recoup costs on that. So one thing when we say 6%, I think is really important, and if we're talking with constituents and community members, it's really 6% of that generation charge, not 6% of the bill. So that's a really important distinction that makes a big difference financially. So when we talk about 6% of the generation charge, we're actually looking at something closer to 1.6% of the total bill changing. So just to be clear about those numbers, because it is the smaller charges we're talking about increasing. So if we look at comparison to 2025, again, would actually be saving some still from the 2025 rates. And if we look at comparison to now with our 6% increase, it'd be about $2.33 on the average bill. So nothing we take lightly. We're looking for every opportunity to bring that back down to parity with PG&E. But we were happy to see that we could, again, maintain those reserves and have a fairly light impact. But very sensitive to the fact that it's not nothing. And it's a big deal, which is why we wanted to do a bit of this road show to make sure people really understood what we're talking about. I think something that the folks we have answering the phone, deal with is like, well, why pay anything more? If we have a choice, should we just go with the cheaper option, even if it's nominally cheaper? And I think, what I would encourage people to think about, and what our folks on the phone, answer questions about every day is, do you appreciate having local governance? Do you appreciate, calling on the phone and being able to talk to someone that's going to talk through this with you and take the time? It's something that is powered by the community, has good representation. You can come to our meetings, just like you can come to this meeting, and make your voice heard. We pursue more renewable energy, so that portfolio looks very different than a PG&E portfolio. And we offer a whole lot of programs locally that weren't otherwise being offered. And so, I think that's a big benefit. I really do encourage people that are concerned about their bill to take advantage of some of those energy efficiency services. Again, there's many that are low and no cost, and may be able to save back, the difference in the rates. And I still would argue that we have competitive rates. This is the first time in our 10-year history that we have needed to be a little bit higher. Collectively, we've saved over $5 million for ratepayers over the course of our operations. So we're very hopeful that this is kind of a blip and not a trend, because we do have that local control and local governance, and we're not driven by profits. We're looking for every opportunity to bring those costs down as soon as possible. And then we we do a whole lot of advocacy. So, looking at what could be really real savings, for example, if that PCIA went away and we could offer, competitive rates in the ballpark of 25% less than the investor-owned utility, that's real savings. That's real amounts that we could save our community. And so we want to make sure we're still, full steam on the advocacy we do to, bring to light the challenges that those kinds of fees cause, and the impact it bears for our community. We work very closely with the trade organization of all the other CCAs, so we have kind of a larger voice. It's quite a bit of California ratepayers now that are enrolled in different community choice energy programs throughout the state, so the voice is getting louder. The CPUC has agreed. They're in the middle of a proceeding now where they are looking kind of holistically at the PCIA for the first time and saying, does it make sense? Is it, and it's sort of our first opportunity to really have that broader discussion. So we're looking forward to changes. We can't guarantee them, but we're working very hard there. And then, if you're talking to folks who are concerned about their bill, again, I just really encourage them to give our CEA a call. One thing we can do with folks is just review their rate, much like we did for the city of Arcata. The rate that people are on and the time that they tend to use their energy makes a difference. And so one simple thing you can do is just call and get some advice, like what rate are you on? When are you using your energy? And sometimes that alone, just changing your rate, which is no cost to anyone, can result in real savings. I do encourage people to request that free home energy assessment and a free energy efficiency kit. There's some great benefits there. And then we have a whole portfolio of rebates. So people can go online and take a look. If you're doing, you're getting a dishwasher, or washer or dryer, there's definitely rebates depending on the equipment you choose. So take a look there. Some of them could save you quite a bit of money. So that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take questions and go over any of this with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. Shall we start on the left this time? If you'd like.
I have a question if you're not ready to go. Okay. Yeah. So thank you so much. I attended a couple of these board meetings when we were talking about this, and I appreciate that, you showed bill comparisons for a homeowner. What I haven't seen, and now that I'm really interested, the more that we talk about how this is going to affect people, is how it affects, it might only be $2 or $3 for an individual household, but how is it going to affect small and larger businesses that are already struggling? So it might be $3 for me, but for a restaurant that's operational and that depends on power, it's going to have, a much bigger impact, and which, brings me to, and again, I think I asked this at a council meeting, at a board meeting, what the tipping point would be when it becomes not sustainable for these smaller and larger businesses, and they opt out because it's just untenable for them to pay those extra rates. And then, you are not able to keep those reserves. Can you talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, we've done some analysis around that because opt-out is a potential, and we want people to have choice. Fundamentally, that's what it's all about, right? And we understand if if finances are really the bottom line for any business, so we have done some analysis of sort of that opt-out threshold, and we can sustain in the ballpark of about a 15% opt-out rate, and I think one thing is that we do have commercial programs coming online. So similar to the residential, we can walk businesses through, ways to save energy, rebates and upgrades and things like that would over time be helpful. But I hear what you're saying in the interim. And I think, one thing we lean on is experience from other community choice energy providers, which we, consulted with extensively on this, because we were pretty loath to raise our rates. We're probably late to the party, quite frankly. Most community choice energy providers did this a year ago. And we just, because it was kind of our history of not doing it and just wanting to wait till we, didn't, we really had to, we didn't jump on that bandwagon early, but it does give us the benefit of learning from other places. And I know we're unique and not every demographic is like ours. So that is also noted. But they did not see a tremendous amount of opt-outs, which was encouraging. And, I do think small business owners are feeling the pinch statewide. So I think, we can learn some lessons from that. But it's something we're monitoring really closely, and we'll take that into consideration. One thing I probably should have got into a little more is how this decision works and how we're monitoring it. So this is not like we're raising rates 6% and then just walking away and like this is how it goes. Like every month we have a risk team meeting that evaluates this, and we will be in real time looking at like where is this going, and part of what will go into those is all of our projections, and if we see opt-outs, that will then become part of those projections, and those trends will be built into the model, the financial model we're looking at. So we'll have, then we can say, okay, is this too detrimental, and find that sweet spot. But it is something that I think we need to be tweaking every month, essentially, really real timing it, because everything's very sensitive. We know that everyone's feeling the pinch. And this is not the only rate increase discussion that our member jurisdictions are having. It's coming from every single entity, because this is what happens when times are tough. They're tough all around. And so, we have, luckily for us, we've got some good financial modeling that helps us, gauge that in real time, and we can make those adjustments.
And then what about the new building? How does that fall in with your budget and raising rates? And
so that came out of reserves last fiscal year. So we don't, and we do have some new construction to do, but we won't do that unless we receive, a low interest loan that we're pursuing. So we're hopeful to get a USDA loan, which we're in process of right now. The building has a tenant, which we didn't have before. So we're actually receiving income on that. So if we get the loan, it looks like, what we're hopeful is that it all evens out. We are actually occupying 2 buildings right now. So the idea is we can close out on one, get the, so it all, with the plan, it sort of all evens out. But we won't pursue construction until we have a loan in place.
All right. Thank you. And treat your customer representatives very nicely.
Yes.
Thank you, Beth. I was just wondering about the PCIA in, like finding a time to sunset that. Are you hopeful? Is there movement on that?
I think so. Yeah, I think it's the most hopeful we've been, because I think it got really acute with this last change that the California Public Utilities Commission made. It was it gets pretty technical pretty fast, but it's a change to the methodology and how they calculate the PCIA. And there's not a ton of transparency. So one thing about utilities in general is, cost of contracts, those kinds of things are kept confidential. So because they're sort of, trade secrets, if you will, or insider trade, all of these things that we're worried about. And so, but one bill that Assemblymember Rogers has out right now, that we're very supportive of and was sponsored by our trade agency, is a transparency bill around it. So one thing we got to do is figure out, like, what are they even putting in there? That's not well known, what resources they're claiming. And the big sticking items are these investor-owned generation assets. So something like a dam, for example, that was constructed a long time ago is still appearing, and maybe they're decommissioning it, but somehow it's still being charged to our customers. So we don't have a ton of insight into that. So the transparency bill will be the first step of sort of like, okay, where do we even pinpoint where we want to fight hard, of like, hey, this shouldn't be in there, or, we can kind of point to just having more information about what the next steps are. The other thing is the CPUC proceedings that are looking at it fairly holistically. So we've gotten some traction with a few commissioners that are really saying, like, well, we do want to look at this. And that's new. So I think there is some reason for hope. I think, we're quite frankly, like, investor-owned utilities are very powerful, right? I think that's why we wanted a CCA movement, was to, kind of have some answer to that gave our communities some control. But there's still, it's still an uphill climb for sure. So we're working hard, and I do feel like there's hope. But I'm also not naive to, like, oh, it's a slam dunk and it's going to go away real fast. But yeah, I think that we're on a path now. And I think, just the focus on affordability statewide, and especially utility affordability, I think is helpful for the context of some pressure to really wanting to look at this specific charge and see it changed.
Great, thank you. That sounds like possible good news.
Yeah.
So, I serve on the Air Resources Board locally. And so we have people coming to us complaining about Scotia. Mm-hmm. And I know there's 2 ways to look at Scotia. One is energy, and the other is it's a way to reduce fuel and have to take the fuel out of the area. So I know they must come and talk to you too about that. So what is your idea of, or how do you justify it?
Well, I think a couple of things I will admit is our most controversial source of energy, no doubt, right? We get more public comments about biomass than we do on any other portion of our portfolio. It's also our most local research, so it's about resource. So it's about 20% of our energy portfolio. When our CEA was founded, or I should say, the Community Choice Energy Program got off the ground. The local focus was huge. It was really driven, at that time, the idea was that we would have 100% local energy. That has not really come to pass for a variety of reasons. You may remember the sort of ill-fated onshore wind project that happened. I think it was around 2019 that project was, not approved. And so that was one way we would have seen, pretty close to 100% local power. And so again, offshore wind is, the date keeps going out farther and farther. So it really is our one local and renewable resource, but it is not a carbon-free resource. So that is the challenge, right? It's emitting greenhouse gases. There's other air pollution concerns. We have a contract with them currently through 2031. So very soon our board will be in our community advisory committee and our biomass technical advisory committee, very much working on what's next. Our strategic plan currently calls for phasing that out, but there is certainly arguments to be made for the economic benefit of it. And just as you mentioned, sort of the closed loop, it is primarily local forest, mill waste and that kind of thing that is used on site. So I think there's a lot of pros and cons, and it's definitely something that our board weighs very carefully, which is why they set up the Biomass Technical Advisory Group to really look at it every year. Just some updates on that. They did do a health impact assessment, which is being reviewed by the Air Resources Board now. Preliminary, review of that has indicated that there's not additional, notifications or impacts that they would need to mitigate, but that is still going through the process at the Air Resources Board. So I think that will be really insightful for our board to get the results of that and start making some decisions. So within the next couple years, I think, we're really going to be looking at what's next with that contract. And that's part of, again, I mentioned one of the things we need to do with the strategic plan update is really, kind of make that call about biomass and have that community conversation. We've had it many times over the years, but I think, with the contract kind of coming, up for, question of when it's time to re-up it in 2031, it's really ripe for figuring out what the plan is.
So I've heard this, and I'm just wondering, your deficit, does that have anything to do with the fact, I know you changed over to 410, or maybe you haven't, or you're going to. It's something that HTA, Humboldt Transit Authority, is looking for it also for their drivers. And then you had raises for all your employees. Does that cause you to have a problem with your deficit?
Well, I want to correct some of that information. So we are looking at the reduced work week and have started implementing that. That did not have a material change, really. That's the difference in hours, but in terms of the raises, I think it's a little bit of a misnomer. So we got a class and comp survey that gave us a new salary schedule. So over time, yes, there will be some impacts, but it's over the next 10 years. And instead of getting 10% a year, we do 5%, and we've elongated sort of the steps. So instead of giving anybody a raise, we actually moved to the nearest step. So it did have an impact of about, I think it was around $90,000. And again, half of that or a little more is funded through outside funding. So in terms of what went towards rates, it was pretty nominal. One of the other things we did, and I think you've faced this in Arcata recently, this interesting 27th pay period issue. Does that sound familiar to anyone when you have a biweekly pay scale and that, okay. And so rather than paying that out, which would have been about $200,000, we actually reduced salaries through the end of 2026 to accommodate that. So I know that the sort of headline was we got these huge raises. I think the initial assumption when that article was published was that we were somehow all going to step 10, but we actually moved everybody. So nobody got anything close to, I think the most anyone could have got moving to the closest step was about 4% of an increase. And then again, the salary schedule does go out farther. So over time, yes. We also have a little bit different structure that I think is important to note, that we do not have PERS. So if you think about, maybe your commitments to retirement, we do have a retirement plan. I think the inputs on that are not as good as a pension. Our staff do, as one of their perks, would love to have a pension. We don't have that. We have, typical 401ks. And so we also have no unfunded accrued liability towards staff costs. So that's one way we can control those costs over time. So it's a little bit not apples to apples. And I think, it really was part of a bigger scheme in terms of, not taking the payout or not paying out on this last 27th pay period and the savings from that. So we really looked to even all of that out. So I think it's pretty minimal, if at all, especially, in the next 2 fiscal years.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you for that clarification. That was really helpful for me. I'm just curious, $43,000 of 95 rebates in Arcata. Could you tell me a little bit about what that looks, a little bit about those rebates?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I don't have the exact breakdown of rebates, and I'd be happy to provide that. But the types of rebates that residential customers are getting at this point, primarily dishwashers and washers and dryers. And it could be, I think we did refrigeration for a little bit too. So those just kind of, as you need to upgrade your appliances, certainly if anyone is in the market for upgrading their appliances, get on our website and see what rebates are available. We also do outreach to local, appliance stores so that they're informed as well. So if they're selling, anything that they know what rebate might be available, and it could help people know about that too. So we do some direct outreach to local shops as well. So hopefully nobody's missing out on that opportunity, but that's primarily where they're coming from at this time. And we have, through that NREN program, quite a bit of money set aside for rebates. So I just really encourage folks, if you're looking at those upgrades, definitely make sure you're availing yourself of that, because we're not at risk of running out of those funds. Like I said, they're not coming out of ratepayer. It's a whole other program, and we would love to spend every dollar of it. So
Wonderful. Yeah. And thank you also again for the clarification that those raises, half of it came from an outside source and was funded elsewhere. So, yeah. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. And
great. Thanks for having me.
all right. And that brings us then to oral and written communications. The City Council values your comments. The public comment period allows people to address the council on matters not on the agenda. This early section of public comment is limited to 15 minutes, and speakers are limited to 2 minutes each. If you prefer to have a full 3 minutes of time for your public comment, this item is continued at the end of the meeting under item 12, where speakers are granted 3 minutes. Please know, pursuant to the Brown Act, the council cannot discuss or take action on items not listed on the agenda. The council may respond to statements. There will be a time to provide public comment specific to each item when that item is being reviewed by council. So if you have a comment, please make your way to the podium now. Do we have anyone online?
We do not have anybody online.
Please step up to the podium. Thank you.
Okay, so I recently became kind of alarmed because I play tennis, and I noticed once that in another town, not this one, a city employee started spraying around the edge of the perimeter of the tennis court while 3 of us were playing tennis, all seniors. And that was years ago, but I became alarmed again when another world famous tennis player, I think it was Martina Navratilova, announced that she had breast cancer just recently. I have 3 listed here, and not sure which tennis player. But also a doubles famous tennis player that's gone to the top of, the lead in world tennis. Gabriella Dawowski also had breast cancer, and Chris Everett, ovarian 3 times. And so the spraying around the perimeters of the courts or homes too. Um, that's not very healthy, really. But uh, the problem is for if it's in your home. And I live in an apartment building, and all the units are ground floor, and some of us, we don't want to be
Thank-
5 feet
Your,
from.
your time is up. Thank you so much for your
Okay.
comment.
Anyway.
I would recommend calling during business hours, and you can talk to our city clerk. She'll be able to direct you. Thank you for your comment again. Okay, so that brings us then to the consent calendar. All matters on the consent calendar are considered to be routine by the city council and are enacted in one motion. There is no separate discussion of any of these items. If discussion is required, that item is removed from the consent calendar and considered separately. A, approval to waive the reading of the text and consent to read by title only for any ordinance on this agenda. Approve the minutes of the City Council special meeting of July 15th, 2026. C, approve the minutes of the City Council meeting of July 15th, 2026. D, biweekly report on disbursements. E, adopt ordinance number 1592, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Arcata amending Chapter 5 Residential Rental Inspection Program of Title 9 Building Regulations of the Arcata Municipal Code. F, accept donations for the 2025-26 fiscal year of $10,686.62 from the Friends of Arcata Marsh and $25,000 from Humboldt Crabs. G, approve a contract amendment with the Carrillo Engineers in the amount of $240,135 for the engineering services for Phase 1 Arcata Wastewater Treatment Facilities Upgrade Project and authorize the city manager to execute all applicable documents. H, make a continued finding that the emergency procurement to repair failed culverts at 4700 West End Road is necessary and authorize the city manager to execute all applicable documents. I, adopt resolution number 267-03, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Arcata approving the City of Arcata's administrative policy regarding the usage of artificial intelligence and authorize the city manager to execute all applicable documents. J, adopt resolution number 267-07, authorizing the city manager to execute all agreements and amendments for the Reconnect Arcata project with the California Department of Transportation. K, award bid for the 2026 timber sale of Douglas fir and western hemlock logs to Norfolk Lumber Company and authorize the city manager to execute all applicable documents. And L, adopt resolution number 267-09, approving and authorizing the execution, purchase, and sale agreement of sale of APN numbers 507-251-039-000 and 507-251-040-000 located at the intersection of Belfalor Court and Erickson Way. Would any council member or staff like to remove an item from the consent calendar? So
May the city clerk interrupt?
absolutely.
Staff is requesting to remove item D as in dog from the consent calendar. An error was discovered. The attachment that typically shows all of the transactions on that report is missing. I did double check the rest of the agenda out of precaution and no other attachments were missing. It's just this one. So we request that you remove it, please.
Great. So do we have any members of the public waiting to comment on the calendar items? And if so, then line up to the podium now and we will should I make that motion to pull that right now?
I'd like to.
Absolutely.
I just want to pull item H really quickly.
Absolutely. So D is in David and H is in Henry. Please step up to the podium.
I was the person who discovered that the disbursements pages were not in there. And it's very funny because I don't look at them all the time, but before I came to the meeting, because I'm always interested in the little and big monies spent. And I do know that you're trying to take things off of the consent calendar that are big price tag items. And, you know, all was clarification for me on the phase 1 sewage treatment plant monies, these additional monies, and maybe we already have it in reserve ready to go or whatever. But I know there's an issue that's on the old business with a huge amount, but there's also a smaller amount that's on the consent calendar. And if that's item H, I don't have the agenda in front of me. No, but I just also find it really interesting with all these numbers that are being read off when you read every item on the consent calendar. They do none of that in the city of Eureka. They do not read off the consent calendar. So it's an interesting thing because all of that information is so kind of dense. And so I really appreciate that we're paying attention and singling out things, but sometimes it just doesn't even make sense when we're reading out loud. Just a kind of observation and comment. And finally, in the minutes, you're no longer talking about what people say, like here at this podium. In the minutes, you just said Joanne McGarry said something, you know, at the non-agenda item thing. And it would be sort of interesting to know if you could link that to the location on the video. So if somebody really wanted to know what I had to say, not that everybody does, but there'd be a link in the minutes to say, see, you know, 54.1 on the video. I don't know, just some ideas. It's interesting how different everybody does things in different municipalities.
Thank you for your comment. So do we have a motion to adopt the consent calendar with the exception of items D as in David, H as in Henry?
I so move.
And second?
I'll second.
So we have a motion from Councilmember Stillman and a second from Councilmember Matthews. If there's no other discussion on this motion before we vote, all those in favor?
Aye.
And I say aye, so motion passes.
And I'm sorry, I should have asked about this at our meeting, but it just seems like this has been an emergency proclamation for the last, since time immemorial. So I was just wondering, is it still an emergency? When will it stop being emergency?
Good evening, council members, member of the public, and member of the staff. Good question. Here's the background that the way we procure the contractor to do the work, we said it's emergency because the amount was more than what we could authorize. So that's why it was emergency. Most of the work is complete. There's a small piece of work remaining. We are hopeful that will be done by end of September, and after that, it will not be on the agenda. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. So with that, I would like to make a motion to approve consent calendar agenda item number H, letter
Second.
H.
I seconded.
Thank you, okay. And so we have a motion from Councilmember Matthews.
May the clerk interrupt?
D.
We do need to receive public comment on that
Oh,
item.
right, thank you. Anybody would like to comment on that item? Step on up to the podium.
Hi, my name is Joanne McGarry, and I ride my bike up on the Annie and Mary Trail, and I was trying to figure out if that emergency thing is what's impacting a part of the trail, because it was a little bit hazardous to get off that trail and ride in the gravel and get back on the trail. And if that's going to be completed and smooth sailing on the trail, that is wonderful. But I appreciate your explanation of why you're having to continue this emergency declaration. But hopefully, again, the Annie and Mary Trail will not be impacted like it has been.
Okay, so anybody online for this?
No, we do not have anybody online.
Okay, so now all those in favor? Oh,
Did you want our city engineer to provide any comments on the question and maybe provide a little more information on that?
please.
Yes, so the animatory portion of that is impacted by the emergency work. We just poured the concrete there, and there will be a bridge soon, so hopeful that it will not be impacted for a long time. Thank you.
There you go. All right. May I now? Okay, great. All those in favor say
Aye.
and I say aye, so motion passes. All right.
Before we move on from the consent calendar, I know item D was
D.
pulled and maybe there's not much to say on it, but just
Sure.
for the meeting purpose, if we could please visit that one before moving on.
Absolutely. So we did have somebody do public comment on it in person. So do we have anyone online?
No, we do not have anybody online.
Is there any other comment from council or staff?
No, just that that report will be brought forward at the next meeting. So the next meeting will have a longer report that includes the dates that should have been covered this meeting and the ones that will be covered at the next meeting.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Okay. So then all of those in favor say aye.
No
We
need
did.
to do a
We're all
motion.
done. Okay, great. All right, well, that brings us to old business. Approve a contract amendment in the amount of $1,500,000 to Wildland Construction for additional work on Phase 1 of the Arcata Wastewater Treatment Facilities Upgrade Project and authorize the city manager to execute all applicable documents. Can we have a staff report from City Engineer Netrikatri, please?
Yes, good evening. The item in front of you is contract amendment for the construction for the wastewater treatment plant. This one. Yes, the project is complete, and 99.8% of the project is complete. We did the ribbon cutting. However, during the construction, we realized there are certain critical elements within the project that we want to improve. Initially, the plan was to improve those things in phase 2 of the wastewater treatment plant project. However, phase 2 is far down. We don't have exact dates, so we need to take care of some of the emergency stuff. And the good thing is we still have funds left from the grant, so we are hopeful that we could use those funds to do the work. There are small items within the project that will be done by that $1.5 million. However, these are the 4 big elements that we need to definitely fix before the maybe next rain comes in. So we ask you to approve this contract. If you want more details on each element, I can go over that, but it is stated in the staff report. But if people have any questions, I'm ready to answer those questions.
Great, thank you. Do we have any questions from council?
I just think that it's really important that we do move along. We're supposed to have a really wild, wet winter this winter. And that's something we're going to have to think about how we're going to handle that too. So with that, I would move to approve a contract amendment in the amount of $1,500,000 to Wayland Construction, Inc. for additional work on Phase 1 of the Arcata Wastewater Treatment Facilities Upgrade Project and authorize the city manager to execute all applicable documents.
I'll second.
And do we have any members of the public waiting to comment on this item? Do we have anyone online virtually?
No, we do not.
Okay, so we have a motion from Councilmember Stillman and a second from Councilmember Atkins-Salzar. Unless there's any other questions, shall we all say?
Aye.
Aye.
And I say aye, so motion passes. Okay, let's see. That will bring us to, give me a minute here. Provide, item B, provide direction on the primary argument in favor of the transactions use tax measure on the November 3rd, 2026 general municipal election ballot. Can we have a staff report from City Clerk Rhea Varley, please?
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, and members of the public. I am presenting tonight regarding the proposed primary argument in favor of the transactions and use tax measure on the November 3rd, 2026 general municipal election ballot. For some background, at its June 17th, 2026 regular meeting, the City Council assigned a subcommittee to draft a primary argument in favor of the transactions and use tax ballot measure, which was placed on the November 3rd, 2026 ballot by the City Council earlier that evening. At that time, the council appointed a subcommittee, which included Vice Mayor Atkins-Salazar and Councilmember Stillman to draft proposed language for the council's approval. The primary argument and any rebuttal argument will be printed in the voter information guide that's mailed out to each registered voter within the city of Arcata. The city clerk, which is me, Rhea Varley, has received a written argument in favor of the ballot measure from Councilmember Stillman, which was accompanied by a list of 5 signers who are individual voters in the city of Arcata. The list of signers includes Colin Fisk, Wendy Starr, Jeff Nagin, Charles Powell, and Stephanie Lane. I apologize if I mispronounced any of their names. Their names and information can be found in attachment B of the staff report before you tonight. And so tonight, guidance is being sought from the council on whether the signers of this primary argument should still be the city council as originally directed on June 17th, 2026 at that meeting, or if these 5 voters should be authorized to sign the argument instead. If the council does decide to authorize these 5 voters to sign the argument instead, I will also be asking for direction on whether one council member will be coordinating with these voters to gather the signatures. And the reason I'm asking that is simply because I do have a ballot argument statement form that they would need to affix their signature on for this argument. And I would love to provide that to whoever's circulating it. I also want to take a moment just to provide a friendly reminder that the primary written arguments for or against the measure must be submitted to the city clerk by 1 p.m. on Friday, August 14th, 2026. After that date, no arguments for or against the city measure may be submitted. And at this point, please let me know if there are any questions that I can answer. We have the 2 options that the council can choose from in the recommended council action section of the staff report. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for that, Rhea. Okay, so to the right, to the left.
Well, I will go. Thank you, Alex, for basically taking all of this on. I love that I'm on your subcommittee, but she has done all the work. And one thing that I've learned from her along the way, and because she's done this before, is it makes more sense to have community members, since we're the ones like asking for the money again to use. It's just, and you might be able to say it more eloquently, but it just is a better choice to have show community members providing the argument in favor of. So that's the direction that I would like to go with that when we get to time to vote. So. And thanks, Alex.
You're welcome.
And would you be, if we're going with those signatures, would you be willing to be the one to get all the signatures?
I would like to do that.
Okay. See, she would like to do it. Awesome.
Okay. And she's good at it. Thanks. I worked with her 2 years ago on Measure H. And
yes.
Thanks, Alex.
I helped you all get that one together.
Thank you for that, both of you. Do we have any members of the public waiting to comment on this item? If so, please step up to the podium, please.
Hey, I'm Dan Shaheen. I'm just confused. I don't understand why we wouldn't have our elected representatives sign it as opposed to a hand-picked group of citizens that are not elected. That's my question.
Thank you for your comment. Do we have anyone online virtually to speak on this?
No, we do not.
Okay, thank you.
I would like to make a motion to authorize that instead of the council, the proposed 5 individual voters can sign the primary argument in favor of the transactions and use tax measure for the November 2026 election prior to submittal to the elections official.
I'll second it.
Okay, so we have a motion from Vice Mayor Atkins-Salzar and a second from Councilmember Stillman. If there's no other discussion before we vote, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I say aye, so motion passes. Okay, new business. Ratify the employment agreement with Jennifer Dart for the position of Director of Community Development for the term of August 16th, 2026 to August 16th to 2030. Can we have a staff report from Human Resources and Administrative Services Director Kira Vink, please?
Hello, good evening, and thanks for having me. Mayor White and council members. So this is a fairly new process. Thanks to our city clerk. She made sure we were doing it the right way. but these contracts used to come through the consent calendar, and now they are an item on they're a calendared item. So the contract for Jennifer Dart, the city manager has the authorization and the authority and the responsibility to appoint department heads. So what we're asking for the council is to, one, accept the appointment of Jennifer Dart as the Community Development Director, and two, to ratify the employment agreement between the City of Arcata and Jennifer Dart. This is a standardized employment contract, meaning that all the directors, department heads, all have a similar contract. The benefits and the salary in the contract are like the other directors and department heads, and the salary is in a range on our standard salary schedule. And so the contract is for 4 years with an additional 1 year extension that could be given. It would go from August 16th of 2026 through August 16th of 2030. According to the personnel rules for the City of Arcata, this is considered a promotion, and so promotional appointments get a 5% increase, and so she will be placed at step 4 of the management salary schedule, level 232, an annual salary of $134,942.18. Jennifer has been part of our team of employees since 2013. She started her career in the Community Development Department, and she promoted to the deputy position, I believe, in 2018. And since then, she has been a key person to work running the operations of the department and also overseeing the staff in the department. We are very excited to have her be part of our director team, and I'm happy to answer any other questions about the contract if you have any, or about the appointment process.
And I'd just like to add that we're really thrilled to have Jen as a potential candidate for this position and that she's willing to take it on. She's worked with David Loya, our previous director, for a long period of time. Jen has an exceptional skill set. I think the council has all seen her skills. She has been a huge part of bringing a lot of different grants and programs to the city that without her we wouldn't have had. I think she has the trust and confidence from staff, and that continuity is one of the things that we're really looking for with staff and with the community as well. So I couldn't be more pleased that Jen is willing to take it on, and I see she's here if you do have any questions for her too. But again, we're thrilled to be able to have somebody that's come up and worked with David and to be able to take on this position on staff.
Thank you for that, and I see some fingers poised to my right. Go ahead.
Okay, congratulations, Jen. When I was on the Economic Development Committee, you were the liaison, and I started working with you then, and I've just appreciated your thoroughness and your dedication to the city. I'm so proud of you. I know that you're going to do an amazing job. Thank you for all your hard work, and congratulations.
Thank you. We probably have to ratify it before we can congratulate you. So,
Preemptive congratulations.
I mean, if you would like, I would like to move to accept the appointment of Jennifer Dart to the position of the Director of Community Development, effective August 16th, 2026, and ratify the employment agreement with Jennifer Dart for the position of Director of Community Development for the term of August 16th, 2026 to August 16th, 2030, and authorize the city manager to execute all applicable documents.
I will second that.
And I also just want to thank you for being willing to step into that. One of the things I learned on being on council is that the community director often takes as much sometimes or more heat than council members. And so I know that that's probably weighing on you as you step into this position. So thank you for being willing to do it. And I'm really grateful for that. And you'll be great.
And I concur. I am thrilled that we were able to find someone internally that was ready to step right up to the plate because you've been doing it. And so congratulations.
And I'm sorry. And I just hope that after December, we can continue working together in other capacities. So thank you so much.
So I would like to see if we have any members of the public who would like to comment on this item, please. Step up to the podium.
My name's Joanne McGarry, and I first of all appreciate the city clerk for bringing this out of a consent calendar item. This is a very wonderful transparency way to do things, and I applaud this. And I also applaud this appointment because this woman has been to me very, very helpful in my needs in the community in terms of housing and getting right back to me and being very immediate and honest and caring, which is a very important component of this type of job. So I thank you, Jennifer, for all the work you've done in the past, and I look forward to seeing you in operation in the future.
And do we have anyone else in person that would like to comment? If not, we'll go to online.
No, we do not have anybody online.
Okay, so we have, go ahead. Oh, sorry. We have a motion. Somebody remind me from Councilmember Stillman.
Alex Stillman made the motion. I made the motion over here.
And a second from Councilmember Matthews. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And I say aye. I was hoping that we could make an acknowledgement to David Loya, would that be appropriate?
Right now.
Yeah.
If you'd like to, you can
I
do
would
that. And I
love
think
to.
we will be taking something up at the next meeting as well.
Okay, perfect. Okay, wonderful. Depana.
Sounds like we'll be officially acknowledging you next time
That's right.
because you're still the boss right now.
Right.
Yeah, thank you. This is probably a rare moment in history where you'll have two directors of community development for at least a period of time.
Twice as nice. All right, so we're here to award a contract in the amount of $161,965 to GHD Incorporated for the environmental review and CEQA compliance services for the future development of the Happy Valley site, APN number 507-081-038, and authorize the city manager to execute all applicable documents. And now we will have a staff report from our beloved Director of Community Development, David Loya.
I'll add that to my title. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and council members. Yeah, before I begin, I just want to soak it in for a minute here. This is the last presentation to the council, and so that I will be doing in this career, in this role. So I appreciate everything that the council has done for me over the years, and the opportunity. So thank you. So this item before you tonight, it's interesting, all the discussion of, whether items should be on consent or on open calendar. This item would typically, I think, fall under consent, but I think given the activity that's going on in Happy Valley and all the moving parts, it's probably great for the council to hear this in open session, for the community to hear what's going on with this particular project. This item for you began when the city acquired the Happy Valley property in around 2006. The city's redevelopment agency acquired the property, and the intent was to redevelop it for business park purposes. These kinds of long-range planning efforts tend to take some time, but we had a curveball thrown at us in 2012 when Governor Brown dissolved redevelopment agencies. And the purposes that we had acquired Happy Valley for then had to kind of hit the pause button until we navigated our way through several items in redevelopment dissolution. In 2016, the city formally acquired the property as the successor agency to the redevelopment agency and formalized its intent to redevelop the site as originally planned as a business park, and received authorization from the oversight board, the state, and all the other parties that had to review that. And in 2024, the final step towards this dissolution process was taken. I and my staff worked with the taxing entities throughout the region to come to an agreement about how to disperse the funds associated with the city's retaining that property. And one of the interesting facets that we put into that agreement that all the taxing entities really supported was that they only received a portion of the funding that they were otherwise owed through that process. And every single taxing entity agreed to reinvest a third of their share into the redevelopment of this property. That money was de minimis. We're talking a couple $100,000. It's going to take hundreds of thousands of dollars to redevelop this site, but it really demonstrated to me the partnership that this region has with its partner agencies throughout the city. That included the school districts, the harbor district, the water district, the county of Humboldt. All of these entities came together and said it's in all of our best interests to redevelop this site. We recognize that by investing in this property, by creating new jobs, by creating new businesses, that will not only be good for the city having those jobs, but it's also good for those taxing entities to, for a school, for example, to have a place for, someone to be employed so that they can raise children here and have their kids in the school. And that was literally the rationale that I heard from superintendents in the various school districts. And so that step was completed in 2024, but there's still a lot of work to be done. Tonight on the closed session, you heard an item on real property negotiations related to this property. This is also furthering that work to do the environmental work and the permitting work that's necessary to fully activate that sale and to fully activate the vision of having a business park that we can then sell those properties to private businesses, and they can put down their roots here in Arcata. So this is a major economic development project as well, and it's been long planned for. I'm really happy to see that we have built a great head of steam, and I'm glad I'm leaving this project in the good hands of our city manager and our new community development director, and we've got partnership from our engineering department to support us on this. But this contract will help us move that ball down the court. So we are asking that you take public comment on this if there is any, and then award the contract to GHD, who will be providing us with all the environmental work we'll need to do the permitting, and then authorize the city manager to execute those documents. I'd be happy to answer any questions, and otherwise please open public comment and approve the award.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from council?
Well, I was on the council when we actually bought Happy Valley, and we bought I Street, and then of course I was still there when we lost the redevelopment agency. And I feel about the redevelopment agency, as far as we were concerned in Arcata, we were very due diligent about it. And I think that there were other areas in the state that were not due diligent. And I don't know what they were doing, but enough to upset the governor to get rid of redevelopment. Some days I think about it and I think what a shame we don't have that, because I think of projects we could actually be doing if we had it and the difference it would make within our community. But we don't. But nevertheless, I'm really happy to see that we are having some progress on Happy Valley, and the same that with on South I Street, because I think those will be good for us in the future. So I know we have to take public comment, but when the time comes, I'd like to make a motion.
Do we have any other council members at this time? Otherwise, I will take public comment. Okay, step up to the podium if you'd like to comment on this item. If not, do we have anyone online?
No, we do not have anyone online.
Okay, let's pass the baton to
Well, then I'll go ahead and move to award a contract to the amount of see, I'm really bad at numbers, $965 to GHD Inc. for the environmental review and CEQA compliance services for the future development of Happy Valley site. APN number 507-081-038, and authorize the city manager to execute all applicable documents. And I am really pleased to see that we're moving forward on this. Thank you.
And I will second. Oh, do you need to?
Can I just clarify the dollar amount, Councilmember
it's-
Stillman? I just want to make sure I heard that correctly. Is it $161,965?
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
will still second. And thank you, David, for that final presentation.
Thank you. All right. So we have a motion from Councilmember Stillman and a second from Councilmember Matthews. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I say aye, so motion passes. Woo! All right, so that brings us to item C, introduce ordinance number 1593, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Arcata amending Chapter 5, Title 5 of the Arcata Municipal Code to update the definition of a nuisance, change the nuisance abatement hearing officer to the city manager, and allow for the recovery of attorney fees for nuisance abatement. Do we have a staff report from, Joe Bishop, please?
I am here to say hello, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, members of the public, and staff, and say thank you. But at this point, I believe all I am doing is introducing Tom. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Yes. Thank you.
Good evening, council. My name is Thomas Remlinger. I'm an attorney working under City Attorney Goldstein. So before you tonight, we have the introduction of ordinance number 1593, which would amend Chapter 5 of Title 5 of the Arcata Municipal Code, which is the city's nuisance abatement ordinance. So there's 3 changes proposed. The first one would update the definition of the nuisance. The second one would move the hearing officer from the city council to the city manager, their designee. And the final one would be to authorize the recovery of attorney's fees in nuisance abatement proceedings. So I'll go through each one of these briefly. The substantive one and the most substantive one would be the updating to the definition of nuisance. So what that's going to do is that's going to allow the city to treat the conditions that were added as nuisances and abate them through their process. And the additions were to address vacant and abandoned buildings, visual blight, loud or excessive noise, and other attractive nuisances. And you'll see those additions in section 5501, subsection G through I there. So that's the substantive portion. And then we have some procedural changes as well. Currently, the city council is required to hold hearings in order to issue abatement orders. This would change that from the city council to the city manager, which would relieve some of the administrative burden on the city council. That said, the city council will still be required to hold a hearing to recover or any costs or lien of property to recover abatement and nuisance costs. And finally, state law allows the recovery of attorney's fees in nuisance abatement proceedings, both administrative and judicial, but it's required that the city pass an ordinance authorizing those fees, and they are not automatic, but they would apply when the city chooses to do so. So I'm happy to answer any questions you have here for me, and that's the changes we've proposed so far.
Thank you, Thomas. Do we have any questions from the council? I guess we need to officially open the hearing. And then we would need to, I guess, if we don't have questions, we shall ask for public comment, unless somebody here has questions. So if you have any public comment on this issue, step up to the podium, please.
Hi, I'm Dan Shaheen. I have questions. I was reading the proposed ordinance and the attachments, and there was no mention of a serious problem that I see in my neighborhood, which is the overgrowth of weeds in the sidewalks and gutters. I mean, on 12th and 13th Streets, it is absolutely destroying the foundation of the gutters and the sidewalks. I mean, it is growing. I have pictures of a tree growing on 13th Street right next to a telephone pole as tall as my pretty tall 10-year-old daughter. So these are creating major problems all the way up and down the street. And I know those are supposed to be the responsibilities of the homeowners, but I'm not sure how those tie into this proposed legislation, or whatever you want to call it. I would appreciate an answer because you didn't answer my last question and you just sort of ignored it and then went ahead and voted. So sometimes when people come up here, you guys have the right to respond. So I would appreciate, some acknowledgement when a citizen comes up and asks some questions like that. So any answers you can give on that would be great. I also just want to point out that I've been fighting for this problem in the town of Samoa for the past 3 years. And I would request that if you do pass this, that you forward this to the county supervisor's office, specifically Natalie Arroyo, and to Mike Wilson, who I've been trying to bring. The description you gave of blight here is a description of exactly what the community of Samoa looks like under the control of the Danco Construction Company, who the county refuses to cite, despite the Department of Health and Human Services citing egregious health issues in that town. Now, I wrote to Netra and I wrote to David Loya. I invited them all and Merritt to come out and check out Samoa and see. I mean, it's some of the worst conditions you'll ever see in your life. And I have pictures of the kids walking to school and playing in these things. And there has been almost no effort to do any kind of abatement there at all. And John Ford told me they would not, that he acknowledged there were violations, but because Danco has lawyers and would sue, we would not cite them. That means that corporations have the right to break the law in Humboldt County in a way that no one else can. And our county representatives and even our city representatives are getting more and more and deeper into bed with this company that has shown absolutely no interest in mitigating the harm they've caused and living up to their responsibilities. So I'd appreciate a response, particularly about 12th and 13th Street.
Thank you for your comment.
Mayor White, if you don't mind, through the chair, I'd like to just offer up a little bit of information. Part of the reason for better defining nuisances is they were loosely defined. We had seen property owners who had been dealing with property nuisances near their property, and we really wanted to put some specifics in there. What are those things that we want to be able to enforce on? And so that was part of it. Another part is it's not typical to have the council being the hearing body. It's typical to have the council be available for appeal. For example, we had Bob Fegus in here talking about a double check valve, which could have been really handled at administrative level without having to have the city council be the hearing body and bring that in front of the city council. So that's part of the reason for doing this, is just to make that clear. I would say that when we have complaints on sidewalks, a lot of times they're complaint driven. We have a complaint portal on OpenGov. So if we see a complaint about the sidewalk, as mentioned by the speaker, that we address those. That's routine. We get those all the time. So what I would urge them to do, either send an email or better yet, get on the portal. Joe could describe more, but if you look at OpenGov and file a complaint in the city, then we see those, and those go to the nuisance department. We can tender that to the property owner who has maintenance responsibility for the sidewalk. We are doing that all the time. And Joe may even bring that up here in a minute so people can see that, but we've been really successful with implementing code. We've had regular code enforcement meetings for about the last year, and we've really been streamlining our process to try to handle these and not have them be long-term problems. So I appreciate the recognition of the need for this. And again, we're trying to be judicious. Typically, when we have things like this, we want to give the property owners as much time as they need to willingly comply. And so we're very reluctant to impose fines. And if people do ultimately comply, most of the time I can't think of a time where we've imposed a fine because we've gotten voluntary compliance. The only time we've had to impose fines or fees is when we had to go clean it up on behalf of the property owners. So with that said, I'll stop there unless the council has questions. And I know that I would just also remind the council and the public that it's difficult when people ask questions. The council needs to avoid getting into a question and answer. It can get really deep. So we don't, I recognize the council public dynamic. It's difficult to get into that Q&A all the time, but I wanted to provide a little more background that was relevant for this item.
Thank you for that. I hope that came close to answering some of your questions. My question is, we had a constituent that has come in here pretty regularly. I haven't seen him for a minute, complaining about like a noise nuisance. Is this a better way? Does this go like towards kind of alleviating that concern a little bit? I mean, is that an avenue that this person could take for his noise complaints?
I would let our council, Thomas Remlinger weigh in. One of the things that's difficult is noise is transient. If it's non-ongoing long-term noise, yes, but each time ends up being another incident. But Thomas, would you want to respond more to that?
Yeah, so I had a similar idea as you did, in that the process that we have for nuisance abatement really is kind of geared towards property conditions, and sound is sort of temporary. And while you might be able to cite folks or identify it as a nuisance, the abatement process might not be the best method for addressing it, just because the sound would be temporary. So I think that this could address it. You could identify that, hey, you're violating the municipal code, but you may consider like administrative citations and things like that as a way to address noise.
Great, thanks.
And just to confirm, there's nobody on Zoom.
Thank you. I was wondering if, Joe, you were going to show that portal?
I can, and if IT is able to share my screen, I've got this on the cityofarcata.org homepage. So if you type in City of Arcata, .org, this is what pops up. Right here we have one point that is for permits, rental inspections, and complaints. And within that, you've got these 4 icons. These are your building permits. These are your encroachment permits. This is the rental inspection program, and this is a complaint portal. Click right here. It takes you to our OpenGov site. These complaints can be done completely anonymously. They can be done by address, and they can also be done by a pinpoint on the map. And for us to send letters, especially if we're going all the way through to an abatement, it's really good for us to have the starting point. And this complaint, code enforcement is, code compliance is complaint driven. And we put a lot of work into this to make this available. And thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, and I would be happy to answer questions. Yeah.
I guess, yeah, I wonder, and I don't even know if this is a real question, but I'm thinking, is there a threshold? Like, how many complaints does it take for some enforcement to happen? I have somebody asking me that, and so this is a perfect time to ask.
No, there's not a specific number of complaints or even a specific type of complaint. Most of the time, a complaint will result in city staff observing the complaint if possible, and then a coalition of staff determining if there is something that's enforceable.
And I noticed there's specific language that says safety for children, infants, and that kind of thing. So that escalates, I'm assuming.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Now I had some information. Appreciate that.
Thank you. I also should mention there is a place to put photos here as well, which helps us identify the issue. Sometimes we get a complaint about something and it's hard for us to specifically identify what's being addressed. So there is a way to put photos here as well.
Mayor White, I'd like to just a couple things. One, in addition to acknowledging our building department for taking on a much more active role in code compliance, most of the time getting notification and information about how those complaints can be abated, 9 out of 10 times they'll be done voluntarily. And so a lot of times it's just communication from the city back to the property owner. And it's only a few of them that we really end up in a sticky situation where somebody doesn't want to make the moves to comply, or they drag it out for a long
So
period of time.
documentation, if you see something, say something.
Extremely important,
Okay,
yes.
great. Do we have anybody in the public who would like to comment on this item? Did I do that already? It's been a day. I apologize. As soon as it came out of my mouth, I'm like, wait, I think I did that. All right, so then if we don't have any further questions or comments, how about a motion from the council?
Sure. Oops. Oh, I lost it. I will make a motion to introduce ordinance number 1593, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Arcata, amending Chapter 5, Title 5 of the Arcata Municipal Code to update the definition of a nuisance, change the nuisance abatement hearing officer to the city manager, and allow for the recovery of attorney's fees for nuisance abatement. Waive reading of the text and consent to be read by title only.
Second.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion from Vice Mayor Atkins Salzar and a second from Council Member Stillman. It has been a long day. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I say aye, so motion passes. Great, okay. That will move us along to oral and written communications. The city council values your comment. The public comment period allows people to address the council on matters not on the agenda. Speakers will be limited to 3 minutes each. Please note pursuant to the Brown Act, the council cannot discuss or take action on items not listed on the agenda. The council may respond to statements. If you are in person and wanting to give public comment, please line up at the podium, raise your hand if you are on Zoom, webinar, or press *9 if you're on phone line and if you'd like to make a public comment. When we move to online public comment, I will ask the city clerk, I don't think we have a huge amount, but we'll see, how many hands are raised, and we will proceed from the number, comment from the number of people called at that time. So please step up to the podium.
Hello, my name's Joanne McGarry, and as you know, I like to wait, so I get 3 minutes. Again, Eureka gives people 3 minutes in the beginning and the end, if there's people at the end that still need to speak. I just want to say that maybe some of you are aware and others aren't. I live near the marsh, and on Saturday evening there was a brush fire that broke out, and I think which was near the Little Lakes property on South H Street behind some of the houses there, and all of us on that street were briefly evacuated. And I tried to find some more information about what happened and why and what we might do to make sure that we don't have that situation happen again. I was ready with my go bag and, went down to Alchemy Distillery, so it wasn't too far to walk and or stay to wait till things calm down and we could go back home. But that brings me to the Little Lake. That's the redevelopment project and such, and I'm just hoping that whatever the cause of that fire, it was great that somebody reported it quickly because it really could have been very disastrous for our neighborhood. And just thinking that a lot of overgrowth at this time with dry conditions and maybe situations where people are where they're not supposed to be, doing things they're not supposed to do, it's not just about my neighborhood, but because it happened in my neighborhood, I'm interested in seeing what the city's going to be doing about maybe clearing out that property better, and of brush and maybe people. But that was one thing. And the other thing is I have sent a couple of people information about Berkeley's Peace and Justice Commission, because I really do think that issues will come up in our community that we need to deal with. And I have discovered that dealing with them directly at council meetings is not necessarily the most effective, efficient, or good way of doing it. And so I have information about a historic Peace and Justice Commission in Berkeley that I can share with you, and think it could actually replace the Equity Arcata program, because those issues could be discussed within a committee, and it doesn't have to be a committee of all the same like-minded people, and I'm not encouraging that at all. But I would like for that to be something to be considered in the near future, because things are going to come up all the time, and we need to deal with peace and justice as much as we need with the creeks and wetlands.
Thank you for your comment. Next.
Hey, I want to second Joanne McGreary's or J Mac's suggestion or for a Peace and Justice Committee. I think something like that would have saved us a lot of unfortunate back and forth over the last couple of years here at the City Council. I think it's a great idea. I think this council needs to really think about extending more outreach to getting public input. I think that there's been a resistance to public input involved in not answering questions when people come up and ask them, involved in trying to remove Zoom as a method of communication here at the council. I think that was one of the low points of this last year, and I'm glad that you guys made the decision to do it. However, I think the decision to even put it on the agenda is pretty suspect and fairly damning, if you ask me. I'm also hoping that I'm running for city council in the upcoming election, and I understand there's 2 seats coming open, and Councilperson Matthews has dropped out of the race because she says there's been some other people that have come along that she wants to support more than the other people running. I respect that. I wonder if she's going to answer to any of the ethical allegations that have been dropped about using city resources for personal gain. I don't really care as much about her advocacy against Palestinian activists, but I'm more interested in the misuse of the networks and city property to get job recommendations from city staff. That's a gross violation of Arcata's ethics policies. I don't think it's a dismissible offense, but I definitely think it's something that the council person should address. And if it's true, she should probably apologize for it. Thanks.
Do we have anyone online?
No, we do not.
Okay, so that is the end of oral and written communications. Does the city manager have any reports this evening?
Just a few items. Again, one of the most frequently asked questions that we get is when is the fire cleanup going to happen? And so I'm really pleased that we have a contractor out there cleaning that up. They've started to remove a lot of debris. They're implementing dust control measures and watering as they take scoops, and they're making progress. I met with a contractor today. He expects most of the material to be removed for about a week. And then what they'll do is they'll cover the bare ground with plastic, and then they'll come back, take up the topsoils, determine where those can go for disposals, and then put base down and have that site complete. So he's relatively confident that their schedule is moving along. And so in the next couple of weeks, we should see that getting very close to completion. And I just want to say there's a lot of construction projects going around town right now. And the public has been extremely patient. We've had F Street, and 7th blocked for the last few days. PG&E is doing a project, which is not a city project, to reinstall new fence and digging 12-foot long posts at their site. Vero is doing their fiber optic around town. It's just, we're loaded up with projects, and the public has been very patient and extremely courteous and polite when they've called. I know that we've had some sidewalk closures temporarily while they're loading trucks near the fire cleanup site. But again, getting calls, people are understanding, they're appreciative of the work, but they're bringing those things to our attention. So if people see things out there in a way that we can do things better, I know our engineering department's been very responsive to those complaints and trying to work with our businesses, but there are some unexpected things. So I just want to thank the community again for their patience, but we're making progress. And I know the waterline project's ahead of schedule. So one of the trade-offs is it is annoying, and it is it does get in the way and block people's path where they want to go, but they're getting done quickly, and so we're looking forward to them moving forward. And then I will just report on one more thing. Today we had a tour with Humboldt Bay Municipal Water District. A couple of weeks ago we had a tabletop exercise where we did a dam failure scenario, and so we had partners with Humboldt Bay Municipal Water District there. We had Cal Poly there assisting with some of their incident command expertise, and we're strengthening those relationships between our operations staff and Humboldt Bay Municipal Water District's operations staff, and some of the benefits. For example, when the fire happened, we got lucky. One of their employees, Dale Davidson, happened to be an ace when that happened, and he called up the staff and he said, hey, we're going to need water for a long time, and they had their staff there to respond. But having our operators connecting with their operators, we're also looking at collaborating with the water district and other entities to have a county-wide model, which doesn't exist for all the water tanks and storage, just for disaster resiliency. And so just wanted to report that we're making some good progress, and it was nice to start that process with Humboldt Bay a couple of weeks ago and then to further continue it today. That's all I have.
Thank you. Council reports. All reports shall be specifically limited to items relating to city business and shall not request or lead to action by the council at this meeting. And I will let whoever is ready to go.
I'll be glad to start. I have several items. So one is, well, let's see what, well, I'm glad you brought up, you were talking about, flooding, et cetera. And Mike McGuire had his webinar or his conference town hall meeting about what's going to happen to us this next year in the winter. So I'm really happy to see we can get all these projects out of the way in the summer, and summer's construction time, and you see it on the freeways and everywhere. And I hope we'll be all finished by then, which will be good. So the other thing is I wanted to mention that we're going to have the Redwood Coast Economic Summit, and it's going to be located in the Arcata Community Center on October 1st and 2nd. And I wanted to bring it forward to the council to ask if the council would be willing to be one of the sponsors for it. We can either look at how we could defray some of the costs on the Arcata Community Center for it and make that our sponsorship, or the lower sponsorships are $750 or $1,500. And so I think Eureka is $1,500. And so I just wanted to bring that up to see if there's any interest in moving forward on that from the council. Maybe I needed to have someone agree with me to bring it up, but anyway, I'm just bringing it up to the whole council because it will be, last year I went to it, it was in Lake County, and so this year it's going to be here, and next year it could be in Ukiah. I'm not too sure where it's going to go in the future. One of my items. You look like you want to respond to it. I don't know, but nevertheless. The other thing I wanted to bring up was the excessive electricity user tax. And would we consider repealing that as a council? So right now, it generates about $36,000 a year. But the reason it came about, and Michael Winkler was the one that put that together, is because we had so many cannabis grows in Arcata, and people were going to Wild Berries, and they could pay their electrical bill, and it would be $2,000 or whatever. They just peel the cash off when you went up there to pay your electric bill, which mine would be under $100. So I'm just thinking now, have we met the goal of this excessive users tax? And would we consider rescinding it? It won't have a big impact on our budget, so that's another one. These are council things. I don't know if I'll get any comments from anyone or not. So the other one is, I wanted to say that for Humboldt Transit Authority, the ridership's up about 36%, and that Amtrak's has not really been getting the ridership they would expect, but they operate 365 days a year. And I noticed recently they have newer buses. You probably have seen them around town. And I'm hoping eventually that ridership will come forward because they're one of the entities that we'd like to not have to come up here all the way and be somewhere else like Ukiah and have us bring all our riders down there. But besides that, the other thing is there was an issue around Humboldt State or Cal Poly Humboldt, and the service that HCA has been providing, which would be from the dorms, they call it HHM, the new dorms, to on campus. And then there were 2 night routes from that we helped out in the evening with students that had 70% student ridership on it, coming from the university, the night classes, etc., and being able to go home. So during the meeting today, it was decided that we could continue to provide that service, HTA, until the semester is over. And then in the interim, we're going to have to figure out how to do it in a different way. They wanted us just to be able to, HTA, to just provide the service between the dorms and campus, but that's considered a charter service. And we're not, bus systems like ours are not allowed to do charters. And that happens to be a federal regulation. And so they're going to have to be creative and figure out some different things to do. But I wanted to give you an update on that. And Kimberly was at that meeting, so you may have more to say.
Thanks. So I had my monthly meeting for the heavy lift marine terminal upgrades on the community advisory committee, and we mostly reviewed how our the public event went, and there was well over 200 people that attended here in Arcata, which was great. And we will be holding another one, or plan to, in the future in a different community, trying to engage as many people as possible. I had another meeting with my capacity at HWMA, just to continue to look towards keeping our food waste and green waste here locally in the future. And as far as the possible agenda items, I do support some level of a sponsorship, although I don't think that necessarily needs to be an agenda item. Usually we have funds set aside for similar things, so maybe you want to talk to staff about that. And for the Energy Committee, we did have the presentation, and I've been in touch with Emily Sinkhorn, because we have had some constituents reach out to us who don't have grow houses, but they're somehow triggering this. And so we are working to get feedback. And one of the things that Director Sinkhorn said is the Energy Committee is talking about this and considering it. And so if people are in that scenario where they're triggering that use and they shouldn't, they can't understand why, because we all, know why it was intended, to definitely reach out to staff at the city so that we can get those testimonies, because she said those are important to have for the Energy Committee to really understand who it's affecting. But I do absolutely support continuing these discussions with that. That's all for me.
Yeah, I didn't have any of my JPA meetings in the last couple weeks, but I did have a meeting with Brenda from Centro del Pueblo about the iBlock party, mostly because I have a lot of experience with helping plan the iBlock party for several years, and also with events like Oyster Fest and 4th of July. So I was able to listen to their plans and help troubleshoot and make suggestions about sponsorships and other things. And so I'm sure they'll be putting a call out for volunteers soon. I'm super excited about them taking over. Let's see, there is a chamber mixer tomorrow at Jacoby's Storehouse from 5:30 to 7. And I would like to thank the Crabs for a very fun and successful well, it wasn't that successful. It was a good season. And to that, I would love to ask our mayor if we could adjourn tonight in honor of Carl Pellets, the former mayor who passed, who's also heavily involved in the Crabs. So I think that would be a really great thing to do this evening. That's it.
Yeah. I will let you have that portion. So I did want to respond also to the city-sponsored economic summit. I would not be opposed to sponsoring that. The excess user electric tax, I know that if a family has a couple electric vehicles, that can easily trigger. So definitely would like to bring that to council. Also, I did have the opportunity well, I'll just read you what I got here. Give me just 1 minute. Oh, I also, the green and gold route is also going to be ceasing in September, not just the evening routes, but more, it sounds like we're going to be able to at least extend the evening, and it looks like the green and gold routes, though, unfortunately will stop, but the gold route actually kind of replaces that. We just won't have them as often. Instead of every 15 minutes, it will be like every 45 minutes, but perhaps that can be.
Well, I don't think that, the discussion is when we had students living in the Comfort Inn, that was one of the reasons we have that route. And the students could also go up to Humboldt and have their dinner and then come back to the Comfort Inn. Now the Comfort Inn is no longer used for student housing, and it has very low ridership.
Right.
And it's an expense, and so that's why it's going to be eliminated.
I understand it was like 14% usership, but it was costing 45% of the budget. So that's a difficult justification. So onward. I was unable to attend the July 15th City Council meeting due to my participation in the National Association of Latino Elected Officials. They had an annual conference in Los Angeles. It's a professional development and convening of elected officials, providing an opportunity to connect with other leaders that are across the country, engage in discussions that are impacting our communities, including immigration, housing, infrastructure representation, and equitable access to resources. Prior to the annual conference, I also participated in the NALIO, National Association of Latino Elected Officials Emergency Management in Bentonville, Arkansas. That was amazing and so much education. It was focused on, of course, disaster preparedness, emergency response, and building community resilience. The training provided valuable insights and best practices that complement Arcata's ongoing work in emergency preparedness and resilience. I think we're going to need to rethink some things with the winter coming. Sounds like we're going to have a hellacious winter. Last Thursday, I attended and participated in the Assembly Member Chris Rogers Town Hall in Ferndale. I attended the Centro de Pueblo and UC Davis Labor of Community Center Know Your Rights, Supporting Your Immigrant Neighbors training in late July, which focused on community protection, immigration-related issues, and planning for the future to better support our immigrant families and community members. I also had an opportunity to talk to Brenda about the I-Block party as well. I'm super excited about that. I am the Sister City Liaison for the City of Arcata for the I-Block party at Nicaragua, Sister City. I attended the Redwood Coast Tsunami Working Group 30th anniversary celebration, which was held Thursday, July 31st at the Wharfinger Building in Eureka. This event commemorated 30 years of the organization's work in earthquake and tsunami preparedness on the California North Coast. I also just found out today that I was selected to participate in the North Coast Catalyst convening hosted by the California Strategic Growth Council and the Governor's Office of Land Use and Climate Innovation. So this will be bringing local and regional leaders together from across the North Coast to collaborate on strategies related to community resilience, climate adaptation, housing, transportation, and sustainable economic development. And I very much look forward to representing the City of Arcata at the September 15th convening. I attended the Humboldt Transit Authority meeting this morning in the capacity of the Arcata's representative of Humboldt, HCOG, the Humboldt County Association of Governments. And then, as pointed out, representatives from Cal Poly Humboldt came to discuss the university decision about the Green and Gold Route evening transit service and to explore collaborative solutions to help preserve the transit access for students, workers, and the broader Arcata community. And in particular, because I am a frequent writer, and I feel like it's definitely an issue of equity. So I'm really glad that they are willing to extend that while we look for some solutions. Today, I also attended the Humboldt Equity Consortium, which focused on honoring heritage, strengthening community. The meeting brought together community partners for relationship building. We learned about collaboration around creating systems for care, safety, and belonging. The feature presentation was led by Cal Poly Humboldt's Asian Desi Pacific Islander, Happy. Also, the Humboldt Asian and Pacific Islanders highlighting the Heritage Month events, cultural traditions, and the significance of the Oban Festival. Did I say that right? Okay, great. Anyway, this discussion is highlighted the 5th annual Humboldt Oban Festival on August 16th at the Arcata's Creamery District, and it's a community celebration honoring ancestors through cultural traditions, dance, music, food, and community connection. The meeting concluded with partner updates and resource sharing and opportunities for continued collaboration. And finally, following the footsteps of our Vice Mayor Stacy Atkins Salazar, who previously participated in this program, I was selected by the elected officials to Protect America to participate in its national conference in Washington, D.C., taking place. I will be leaving very early in the morning. I'll be out of here at 4 in the morning, and I'll be back at midnight on Sunday. But I'm super excited. I look forward to representing Arcata while collaborating with elected leaders from across the country on climate action, clean energy, resilience, and of course, effective leadership, local leadership. And I also had an opportunity to coordinate with Jared Huffman's office, and I get to tour the White House on Friday for my visit, so I'm super excited about that. Anyway, I just appreciate the opportunity to represent Arcata through regional collaboration, engagement, partnerships, strengthening community resilience, housing, transportation, and equitable resources that bring back our ideas, partnerships, resources that benefit our community. And that's all I've got. So I will pass that to Meredith.
Alex, do you want to do it? Did you know, Carl? Go ahead.
Carl Pellets served on the Arcata City Council, and he was also the mayor. And I just thought when we have council members that pass, it's always nice to recognize them and just take a moment of silence, and that's what I would suggest. And Carl and Charlene were so involved in the crabs for years and years. They were really a backbone, and so I'm sure they were sorely missed in the past. So I would suggest we just take a moment of silence and in recognition of him.
This meeting is adjourned.